Have you ever wondered what it would be like to wake up suddenly in the heart of the Inca Empire? To live amid the sprawling cities, towering mountains, and the intricate social order that shaped one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient Americas? Many imagine they could adapt, that their modern skills or instincts would be enough. But the truth is far more challenging. If you were to open your eyes tomorrow in Cusco, the imperial capital, would you survive even a single day? The answer is likely no, not because of lack of courage or intelligence, but because the Inca world was built on a foundation of discipline, expectation, and survival strategies utterly foreign to our contemporary life. From the moment you awake, you would be plunged into a reality where every aspect of daily life is tightly regulated by the needs of the state, the demands of the environment, and the spiritual beliefs that sustain the empire's unity. The Incas engineered their society and their land to an extraordinary degree, from their agricultural terraces carved into the Andes to the extensive road networks connecting distant provinces. This was a civilization built on order, obedience, and an unyielding work ethic, qualities essential for survival in one of the most rugged landscapes on Earth. Imagine yourself lying on a simple woven mat inside a stone house in Cusco. There are no soft mattresses or pillows, no modern comforts. The air is thin and cold, for you are thousands of meters above sea level. Outside, the sound of llamas and the clatter of people preparing for the day fill the crisp morning. The sun has not yet risen over the jagged peaks, but already the city is stirring, and so must you. Laziness or hesitation is not tolerated here. Every member of Inca society has a defined role and duty to fulfill, whether as a farmer, a soldier, a craftsperson, or a servant of the emperor. Your clothing, if you arrived with any, is useless here. Instead, you are given a simple tunic, a unku, woven from alpaca wool, and a loincloth made of cotton if you are a man, or a kushma if you are a woman. These garments not only protect you from the harsh Andean cold, but also signal your social status and community membership. Not knowing how to wear or care for these clothes immediately marks you as an outsider and a liability. Stepping outside your dwelling, you face the city's labyrinth of narrow stone streets and steep stairways, all bustling with people headed to markets, temples, and fields. Cusco is not just a city. It is the political, spiritual, and economic heart of an empire that stretches thousands of kilometers across the Andes, from the deserts of present-day Chile to the jungles of the Amazon. The Incas ruled through an intricate system of provincial governors, labor drafts, and a vast army. Compliance and punctuality are not suggestions, but demands backed by strict laws. Your first challenge: understanding the mita system, the mandatory labor tax that requires every able-bodied person to contribute work to the state for a set period each year. Failure to appear or shirking responsibilities could mean severe punishment. Even before the sun climbs high, you may be summoned to carry heavy loads along the empire's famous royal roads, constructed with stone and crossing dizzying mountain passes. The altitude and terrain make every step exhausting, especially for someone unaccustomed. Moreover, your survival depends on mastering the agricultural calendar that governs planting, harvesting, and storage. The Incas developed terrace farming and sophisticated irrigation techniques that turned mountainsides into productive fields, growing maize, potatoes, quinoa, and other staples. You would be expected to contribute labor to these efforts or risk starvation. Religion permeates every part of life. The sun god Inti is revered as the empire's divine protector, and daily rituals require offerings and participation in festivals. Not understanding or respecting these spiritual customs would isolate you socially and spiritually, diminishing your chances of acceptance and survival. This empire is a world unlike anything we know today. one where individual freedom often yields to collective needs, where strength and endurance are valued above all, and where the smallest mistake can lead to exile or death. As we journey through the layers of Inca society, from the emperor atop his golden throne to the humble farmer in the highlands, you will see why adapting to this world is far from simple. Before we continue, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if this exploration moves you, and comment below with your image of the Incas. Would you see yourself thriving or struggling in their world? Your thoughts are part of this shared memory. The Inca Empire's strength lay in its highly organized social and political structure, which was both rigid and complex, designed to maintain order and maximize productivity across thousands of miles of mountains, valleys, and jungle. At the pinnacle of this structure was the Sapa Inca, considered a living god descended from Inti, the sun deity. His word was law, and his presence was both awe-inspiring and absolute. But this divine authority was backed not only by religious reverence, but by an efficient bureaucracy that ensured the empire functioned smoothly day after day. Below the emperor was a hierarchy of nobles, administrators, and local leaders called curacas, who acted as intermediaries between the imperial center and the diverse peoples under Inca rule. Each community was organized into islas, kinship groups responsible for land management, resource distribution, and mutual aid. Your survival would depend heavily on your position within this social network. Outsiders, strangers, or those without proper documentation of community membership were viewed with suspicion and often treated harshly. The Incas maintained control through a system of record-keeping called quipu, an intricate series of knotted strings used to record census data, tribute, and labor obligations. While you might be used to writing or digital records, deciphering and participating in this numeric communication would be bewildering. To ignore the quipu system would mean missing critical information about your duties and rights within the empire. In daily life, you would encounter strict rules governing your behavior, diet, and relationships. Social harmony and respect for hierarchy were paramount. Commoners could not marry nobles, and stepping outside your assigned role or displaying disrespect could provoke punishment, ranging from fines to imprisonment or exile. Unlike modern societies that prize individual expression and freedom, the Incas emphasized the collective good and adherence to tradition. One of the most demanding aspects of Inca life was the mita labor system. This was not voluntary work but a mandatory draft requiring able-bodied men and women to spend part of the year serving the state. You might find yourself building roads, farming royal lands, or serving in the military, often far from your home. Physical endurance was essential, as these tasks took place in harsh environments at high altitudes. Without proper acclimatization or knowledge of the terrain, you would quickly succumb to exhaustion or illness. The empire also managed an impressive network of roads and bridges, over 40,000 kilometers in length, connecting remote regions to Cusco. These roads were maintained by local communities and were vital for the rapid movement of armies, messengers, chasqui, and goods. If you were suddenly thrust into this world, you would be expected to traverse these routes carrying heavy loads or messages, facing steep climbs and unpredictable weather. Nutrition and diet also played a crucial role in survival. The Incas cultivated a variety of crops adapted to different ecological zones, including potatoes, maize, quinoa, and coca leaves, which were chewed to combat altitude sickness and fatigue. However, as a newcomer, you would struggle to recognize edible plants or understand local food preparations. Illness from unfamiliar foods or inadequate nutrition could weaken you fast. Religion, festivals, and rituals were integrated tightly into daily existence. Not only were you expected to honor the sun god Inti, but also to participate in complex ceremonies, including offerings, dances, and pilgrimages to sacred sites called huacas. These acts reinforced the social order and spiritual health of the empire. Failing to participate or disrespecting sacred customs risked social ostracism or worse. Furthermore, the empire was constantly vigilant against external threats and internal dissent. The Inca army was well-trained and disciplined, ready to quash rebellion or defend borders. If you were perceived as a threat or an outsider with questionable loyalty, survival would become even more precarious. Trust was earned carefully and often required demonstration of loyalty through labor and ritual participation. Your language skills would also be tested. Quechua was the official language of administration and daily communication, but many regions had their own dialects. Without fluency, misunderstandings could be dangerous. Communication was not just about words, but also about understanding subtle social cues and rituals. All these factors combined to create an environment where survival was not simply a matter of physical endurance, but also of mental adaptability, cultural understanding, and strict obedience. For someone from a modern, individualistic society, the expectations and rules would feel alien and suffocating. The lifeblood of the Inca Empire was its remarkable relationship with the natural environment, a relationship forged through centuries of careful observation, adaptation, and innovation. In the towering Andes, where steep slopes and variable climates posed constant challenges, the Incas transformed seemingly inhospitable terrain into vast, productive, agricultural landscapes. But this mastery of nature demanded knowledge, skill, and hard labor that few outsiders could grasp quickly enough to survive. One of the most iconic features of Inca agriculture was their system of terraces, or andenes, carved meticulously into mountain sides. These terraces prevented soil erosion, conserved water, and created microclimates suitable for diverse crops. Imagine being ordered to work these steep, narrow fields, often under intense sunlight or freezing winds, without prior experience or the physical conditioning needed. The soil was heavy and rocky, and the tools were simple: wooden digging sticks, stone knives, and basic irrigation canals crafted by hand. Adapting to this toil, especially at altitudes sometimes exceeding 3,500 meters, was no small feat. The Incas' crop selection was as strategic as their landscape engineering. They grew potatoes, maize, quinoa, beans, and more, selecting varieties suited to different ecological zones from the cold Puna grasslands to the warmer valleys. Each crop had its planting season, irrigation requirements, and harvesting methods. Missing these cycles or mismanaging the timing could lead to famine, a risk the empire mitigated through vast storehouses called kulkas, where surplus food was dried and stored. However, understanding and accessing these supplies required inclusion within the social system. Water management was another Inca marvel. They engineered canals, aqueducts, and fountains to distribute water efficiently across uneven terrain. Yet this system demanded regular maintenance and cooperative labor from communities. If you failed to fulfill your share in these efforts, you risked punishment and social exclusion. Moreover, water was not just a resource, but a sacred element connected to their deities. Improper use or disrespect could invite spiritual repercussions. The Incas viewed the environment as alive and imbued with spirits. Mountains, rivers, and rocks were considered huacas, sacred places requiring reverence and offerings. This worldview infused everyday tasks with spiritual significance. Working the land was not merely physical labor, but a form of devotion. For someone unfamiliar with these beliefs, the rituals and taboos could seem perplexing or burdensome, yet ignoring them endangered both social harmony and personal safety. Furthermore, the empire's food system was tightly regulated by the state. The redistribution of surplus food was a political tool, reinforcing loyalty and dependency. As an outsider or someone failing to integrate into this system, you might find yourself without access to vital rations. The consequences of hunger in the harsh Andean climate were swift and brutal. Disease and health were constant threats. The high altitudes caused hypoxia, fatigue, and breathing difficulties for newcomers. The Incas chewed coca leaves to alleviate these symptoms, but without cultural understanding or access to this practice, you would struggle to cope. Medical knowledge, though advanced for the time, was largely controlled by specialized healers called hampek. Without trust and inclusion, receiving care could be difficult. The mental strain of adapting to this demanding environment, with its physical hardships and strict social controls, cannot be underestimated. The Incas expected resilience, obedience, and communal spirit. Your survival depended not only on your ability to endure the elements, but on your willingness to embrace a worldview that subordinated the individual to the collective and intertwined the spiritual with the practical. The spiritual life of the Incas was inseparable from every aspect of their existence, forming the invisible but powerful fabric that held the empire together. Religion was not a private matter, but a collective force that dictated behavior, reinforced social structures, and gave meaning to the harsh realities of Andean life. Imagine waking up in this world where the sun itself was worshipped as the supreme deity Inti, the divine ancestor of the Sapa Inca, whose very legitimacy rested on this celestial connection. Your survival would depend not only on physical endurance or obedience to political rules, but on understanding, respecting, and participating in the elaborate system of beliefs and rituals that governed every moment. Central to Inca cosmology was the concept of duality and balance, the complementary forces of Hanan, upper, and Huron, lower, the harmonious coexistence of the natural and supernatural, and the cyclical patterns of life and death. Mountains, rivers, rocks, and even specific animals were considered alive, sentient, and sacred. These huacas were the focal points of community worship, pilgrimage, and offerings. To a modern outsider, such reverence might appear superstitious or burdensome, but within the Inca worldview, it was essential for maintaining the order of the universe and ensuring agricultural fertility, health, and social cohesion. Disrespecting or ignoring huacas could bring misfortune not just upon the individual but upon entire communities, inviting droughts, poor harvests, or disease. Daily life was punctuated by rituals that connected the people to Inti and other gods like Pachamama, Mother Earth, Viracocha, the Creator, and Mama Quilla, the Moon Goddess. At dawn, communities gathered to offer coca leaves, chicha, fermented corn drink, and other gifts, accompanied by prayers and music. These ceremonies were both acts of devotion and social glue, reinforcing hierarchy and collective responsibility. If you found yourself suddenly in this society, failing to observe these customs, even unknowingly, would alienate you, making you vulnerable to suspicion or exclusion. Festivals were grand expressions of Inca faith and power, often involving massive processions, feasting, dancing, and sacrifices. The Inti Raymi, or Festival of the Sun, held at the winter solstice, was the most important. Thousands gathered in Cusco to honor Inti with offerings of gold, textiles, and animals, culminating in the ritual slaughter of llamas or guinea pigs. These sacrifices were not acts of cruelty, but profound gestures of reciprocity, believed to nourish the gods and ensure continued blessings. The emotional intensity and spiritual significance of such events were palpable, uniting the empire in shared reverence and loyalty. For an outsider unfamiliar with the symbolism or unprepared for the sensory overload, fire, smoke, chanting, and the weight of collective emotion, this experience could be disorienting or even frightening. Sacrifice also extended beyond animals to include human offerings, though less commonly than often portrayed. Selected individuals, sometimes children or captives, were ritually sacrificed atop high mountain peaks, considered gateways to the divine. These acts were not arbitrary violence, but deeply symbolic rites intended to maintain cosmic balance and demonstrate imperial authority. Witnessing or understanding these ceremonies would challenge any modern sensibility and highlight the gulf between contemporary values and Inca spirituality. Refusing to accept or participate in these rituals risked social death, and for many, actual death. The empire's priests and shamans held immense influence as mediators between the mortal and spiritual realms. They were custodians of sacred knowledge, healers, astronomers, and political advisors. Access to their wisdom was limited and often restricted to those within the elite or closely connected to the state apparatus. As a stranger, your lack of initiation and knowledge would isolate you, making it difficult to navigate the spiritual landscape and access vital support during crises. Inca astronomy and calendar systems were intertwined with religious life and agricultural cycles. The Incas observed celestial bodies meticulously, using their knowledge to time planting, harvesting, and festivals with great precision. The Coricancha Temple in Cusco, dedicated to the sun god, was an architectural marvel designed to capture sunlight during solstices and equinoxes, symbolizing the cosmic order. Understanding these cycles was essential for survival, as mistimed planting could lead to famine. For an outsider unaware of this knowledge, the risk of failure was high. The empire also institutionalized a system of communal labor and reciprocity called Aini, reflecting the belief that cooperation and mutual aid were sacred duties. This system extended to both practical work and spiritual obligations. Refusing or neglecting Aini was not only a social faux pas, but a threat to the delicate balance of relationships sustaining the empire. You would be expected to engage in these reciprocal exchanges, sharing food, labor, and respect. Isolation or individualism, common in modern societies, was untenable. These spiritual practices reinforced the political power of the Sapa Inca and the nobility, legitimizing their rule as divinely ordained. The emperor was seen as the son of the sun, a living god whose word ensured cosmic harmony and earthly prosperity. This divine kingship meant that loyalty was not just political, but a sacred duty. Any challenge to the emperor's authority was perceived as a threat to the universe's order. For a newcomer, especially one lacking cultural fluency, this reality was intimidating and limiting. Beyond the spiritual and social dimensions, the physical environment itself posed constant challenges. The Andean mountains were unforgiving. Freezing temperatures, thin air, and sudden storms tested even seasoned inhabitants. The Incas developed technologies like the chulo, a woolen hat with ear flaps, and layered clothing to cope with these extremes. They used coca leaves to reduce hunger and fatigue, and constructed buildings with thick stone walls for insulation. However, acclimating to this harsh climate was a slow and difficult process. You, arriving suddenly, would face severe altitude sickness, disorientation, and exhaustion. Without knowledge of local remedies and practices, your body might fail before your mind could adjust. In sum, survival in the Inca Empire was not merely a matter of physical endurance or political obedience, but of deep cultural immersion and spiritual alignment. You had to understand and respect a worldview where every action, every relationship, and every natural element was connected to the sacred order. Your clothing, your labor, your rituals, your speech, all were scrutinized within a network of reciprocal obligations and cosmic meanings. Failing to grasp these connections meant not just social exclusion, but a serious threat to your very life. If you are finding this journey fascinating, please subscribe to the channel, like this video if it resonates with you, and share your thoughts in the comments. What aspect of Inca life surprises you the most? Would you be able to adapt to such a different world? Your voice adds richness to this exploration. Of the most awe-inspiring legacies of the Inca Empire is undoubtedly its astonishing engineering achievements. Monumental feats of architecture, road building, and infrastructure that enabled a vast, mountainous territory to function as a unified whole. For anyone suddenly thrust into this world, the scale and precision of Inca constructions would both inspire admiration and highlight the impossible demands placed on individuals within the empire. Surviving in the empire meant more than just enduring harsh landscapes. It required constant labor to maintain and navigate a network of roads, bridges, terraces, and cities engineered to withstand the harsh Andean environment. These engineering marvels were as much about political control and social order as about practical necessity, and failure to participate fully in their upkeep would be a death sentence for a stranger. The backbone of the Inca Empire's cohesion was its extensive road system, known as the Kapakhan, which stretched over 40,000 kilometers and connected distant provinces from modern-day Colombia down to Chile and Argentina. These roads were not mere dirt paths, but carefully constructed routes made of stone, designed to endure heavy rains, earthquakes, and steep slopes. The roadways varied from wide highways capable of accommodating chasquis, the legendary Inca runners who relayed messages at incredible speeds, to narrow mountain paths traversing dizzying heights and precipitous cliffs. For you, unfamiliar with the terrain and lacking the physical conditioning of a chasqui or an Andean farmer, moving along these routes would be an exhausting, disorienting, and dangerous ordeal. Bridges, both simple and complex, spanned deep ravines and rushing rivers. The Incas perfected rope suspension bridges made from braided grass, ingeniously engineered to be strong yet flexible enough to withstand wind and water. These bridges required constant maintenance. Grass had to be harvested, woven, and replaced regularly. Maintenance was communal labor, and shirking this duty was viewed as a serious offense. Without participation, your survival chances would diminish rapidly, for these routes were essential for receiving food, orders, and protection. Cities and administrative centers such as Cusco, Machu Picchu, Ollantaytambo, and Sacsayhuaman embodied the pinnacle of Inca architecture and urban planning. Cusco, the imperial capital, was designed in the shape of a puma, a sacred animal symbolizing strength and power. Its walls, made from precisely cut stones fitted together without mortar, resisted earthquakes and centuries of wear. Machu Picchu, perched high on a mountain ridge, displayed extraordinary terracing, water management, and temples aligned with astronomical events. These sites were not mere residences or ceremonial centers. They were hubs of political, religious, and economic control. Living in or near these centers demanded a high degree of discipline and skill. If you found yourself suddenly required to contribute to construction or repair projects, you would face physical challenges unlike any modern urban experience. Carrying heavy stones, working at dizzying heights, or digging irrigation canals in rocky soil demanded strength and endurance honed over years. The tools were rudimentary: stone hammers, bronze chisels, wooden levers, and the work was backbreaking. For someone unaccustomed, injury or exhaustion was almost certain. The Inca labor tax system, or mita, mandated that every able-bodied person dedicate a portion of their year to such communal projects. Failure to meet these obligations was met with harsh penalties, including imprisonment or forced exile to distant colonies. The Amita was not just about labor. It was a tool for social cohesion and state power. Through it, the empire harnessed the labor of millions, orchestrating massive public works and ensuring loyalty by distributing goods in return. Transportation of goods was another monumental task within the empire. Without beasts of burden like horses or oxen, introduced only after the Spanish conquest, transport depended on human porters called lamalistas, who carried loads on their backs or using llamas, the native pack animals. These porters traversed mountain passes and steep trails, often carrying supplies, textiles, food, or ceremonial items vital for the state. The physical strain was intense, and porters were highly trained. If you were suddenly expected to assume this role, the physical demands alone could overwhelm you. Water management systems complemented architectural feats. The Incas built canals, fountains, and drainage systems that controlled and distributed water with precision, supporting agriculture and urban needs. At Machu Picchu, for example, a sophisticated system channeled spring water through stone canals to feed terraces and ceremonial baths. Maintaining these systems required constant upkeep and labor. Neglect could lead to floods, crop failure, or damage to sacred sites, consequences that endangered entire communities. The empire's agricultural terraces, spread over mountain sides and river valleys, were engineering masterpieces that increased arable land and protected soil from erosion. Each terrace was carefully built with layers of stone, sand, and soil to ensure drainage and fertility. Farming these terraces demanded specialized knowledge and hard physical work. Clearing stones, planting, irrigating, and harvesting crops in steep and sometimes dangerous locations. Without familiarity and experience, you would be at great risk of injury or failure. Furthermore, the Incas engineered climate-adaptive agricultural zones. They understood the vertical ecology of the Andes, growing potatoes at high altitudes, maize in warmer valleys, and coca in jungle fringes. This knowledge allowed them to feed millions, but it required precise timing, local expertise, and communal cooperation. Newcomers without this understanding would struggle to find food or contribute meaningfully to production. Security and defense were integrated into engineering and labor systems. Fortresses like Sacsayhuaman guarded Cusco, constructed with enormous stones that fit together so tightly they could not be penetrated by invaders or earthquakes. Roads allowed rapid troop movements to suppress rebellion or defend borders. As an outsider, lacking knowledge of military protocols or physical readiness, you could be viewed with suspicion or worse. The sheer scale of maintenance required for this empire was staggering. Roads, bridges, terraces, irrigation, and buildings all demanded ongoing work, often in dangerous conditions and at high altitudes. The Inca state mobilized labor efficiently, but the burden on individuals was heavy. Without physical conditioning, acclimatization, or cultural knowledge, surviving this daily grind was nearly impossible. In addition to physical challenges, the infrastructure also reinforced social hierarchies and imperial control. Access to resources, information, and religious ceremonies often depended on proximity to the capital or favored regions. Travel was controlled, and foreigners or suspicious individuals could be restricted or punished. As a newcomer without status, your movement and survival options would be severely limited. Thus, the empire's engineering marvels were double-edged swords. They enabled incredible cohesion and prosperity but demanded unyielding labor, obedience, and endurance from their people. For someone suddenly placed in this world, the combination of physical demands, social expectations, and environmental hazards created a survival gauntlet few could pass. If you found this exploration of Inca engineering fascinating, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing your thoughts below. How do you imagine coping with such an environment? What amazed you most about their infrastructure? Your engagement helps keep this history alive. As we draw this journey to a close, it becomes clear why surviving even a single day in the Inca Empire would be an extraordinary challenge for anyone unprepared for its demands. The Incas crafted a world where every element, social, spiritual, environmental, and economic, was interwoven into a complex system of order and obligation. Their society was not built for individualism or spontaneity, but for collective harmony sustained through labor, faith, and mutual responsibility. To thrive in such a world required not only physical strength and endurance, but also cultural insight, spiritual alignment, and absolute commitment to the community and its leaders. The empire's success was rooted in this delicate balance: mastery over the harsh Andean environment, engineering marvels that connected remote regions, a rigid but effective political and social hierarchy, and a deeply spiritual worldview that gave meaning to suffering, sacrifice, and cooperation. Every Inca was a vital part of this system, bound by duty and belief. Their lives shaped by rituals, labor, and a profound respect for nature and the divine. For an outsider lacking this immersion, each step could become a perilous test. Understanding the Incas invites us to see beyond our modern perspectives and appreciate a civilization that thrived where survival seemed nearly impossible. It challenges us to reflect on the ways culture, environment, and belief shape human resilience. The story of the Incas is not just one of conquest and empire, but of extraordinary human adaptation and communal strength. If this exploration has deepened your appreciation for the Inca world, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your reflections in the comments below. Which part of their world fascinates you most? Could you imagine living in such a society? Your voice enriches this shared understanding. Thank you for joining this journey into the heart of one of history's most remarkable civilizations. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep honoring the stories that shape our past and present. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to check out another interesting video.